Welcome back. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. Again, this is the Progressive Mind Show. This evening, we're going to be talking about the efficacy of vitamin D, how it affects the immune system in the Black and Brown community. This evening, we have Dr. Kimberly Battle-Miller, Reverend Teller Vines, and Dr. Banu Gadi. Well, we shall go straight to our directors. Now, let me take it from Dr. Battle-Miller. Dr. Kimberly Battle-Miller, you're welcome to the Progressive Mind Show this evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alinko, for having us on the show. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Excellent. We can hear you perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for inviting United for Health 2020, our group of 3 physicians, and Reverend Vines, who is a doctor in his own right. He actually united us under this topic of vitamin D deficiency, and its impact in this pandemic. So he's actually joined several doctors throughout the world to have the conversation, and then we just decided to take it on the road because the literature became very clear in the fact that vitamin D, a source that God has given us, can help maintain our health during this COVID period. You've introduced our partner as well, Dr. Gadi, who is a PharmD, who is working very diligently on the topic of caring for patients with COVID-19, not just in the United States, but also in India, where the rates are extremely high as well. But he spends much of his time day and night giving recommendation on the care and treatment of patients who are severely ill with COVID-19. Tonight, we are pleased to speak to you about vitamin D in general and its importance in our body. We'll talk about vitamin D deficiency, and then I'll transition to Dr. Gadi, who will speak about vitamin D and its impact on the immune system and why it's important during this stage of the pandemic, as well as influenza. And then he'll be followed by Reverend Vines, who will speak about the impact of this vitamin D deficiency and community initiatives and what it means for our community. So we have a presentation that we like to try and just work from so that we make sure that we don't exclude any important information, but the audience is can feel free to interject any type of questions that they would like to in the chat. And then please, as the host, Alinko, please just feel free to interrupt us as needed. So from this point, I'll just jump right in and we'll talk about the importance of vitamin D and why it's important in our bodies in general. What vitamin D prevents. Vitamin D is in literally every cell in our body. We have vitamin D receptors, which means that it's important for our bodies in totality. Vitamin D is a prohormone. It actually helps with the absorption of calcium from our gut. It's its primary role in getting effectiveness in our body. We know that our optimal levels of vitamin D are important because it can help in cancer prevention in both males and females. So it helps, and this is what literature is showing. So everything we're presenting to you is based on medical literature and research. So it's preventive in breast cancer, colon cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer. So having an optimal vitamin D level is important in that. It's important in our bone health. Many of us know about vitamin D and having strong bones. That's what most of us know. But over the years, we know that it goes way beyond just bone health. It can help with our brain health. It can help our heart and keeping our heart well and healthy, and our muscles, as well as our immune system, and for autoimmune disease, which means that if you're deficient in vitamin D, then you put yourself at risk for many medical illnesses. And I'll just specify some of them that I know the audience will be familiar with. When you're vitamin D deficient, you can be at risk of developing illness, or it could make those illness worsen at a quicker rate. So as it impacts the heart, it can cause hypertension, or it's associated with hypertension with the high cholesterol that many of us deal with, heart attacks, as well as heart failure. For our immune system, diabetes There's an association with vitamin D deficiency and diabetes, lupus, which is common in our Black and Brown communities, rheumatoid arthritis, um, Alzheimer's disease that we hear about, Parkinson's disease. There's an association with vitamin D deficiency and those illness, even depression and anxiety. There's an association with vitamin D deficiency and increased risk of depression and anxiety. We already talked about bone health, rickets that many of you know about, but also with osteoporosis that we are faced with. So just weaker bones as we get older, we know that that can be exacerbated by having a low vitamin D level and put you at risk for fractures. Obesity, which is common in the Black and Brown community, there's a great association, a very strong association with obesity and vitamin D deficiency, as well as fatigue, muscle aches, and even increased risk of death, mainly because you can get all of the above diseases that we mentioned when you're vitamin D deficient. So it may not directly cause these illnesses, but there's an association with them occurring more frequently in our Black and Brown communities because we are vitamin D deficient. So here's the issue. A lot of people, the big thing is, how many of us are vitamin D deficient? Overall, for the US, about 42% of our population is vitamin D deficient. But in the Black community, about 80% of us are vitamin D deficiency. Wow. And in the Hispanic and Brown community, it's 70%. So the majority, about every three if you have a group of 4 people, 3 of them will be vitamin D deficient. And that's a statistic that's repeated consistently. And you'll notice that this is also the same group of people where we see the common chronic diseases. So the diabetes, hypertension, obesity, we see in Black and Brown communities. It causes chronic illnesses in our community, and it increases our risk of death at a younger age. If you're wondering, and we've seen some association that maybe correcting your vitamin D level can help improve your overall health, which would help get rid of some of those chronic diseases in our communities. So factors that can contribute to vitamin D deficiency, most of our vitamin D comes from the sun. So lack of exposure to the sun can cause vitamin D deficiency. When you're covered up quite a bit, so those cultures that cover up have high vitamin D deficiency rate. The fact that we live in the north where we're not exposed to the sun a lot all year long, especially in the winter, we're at risk for vitamin D deficiency. A lot of us work long hours and we're inside. And now with COVID, we're also encouraged to stay at home and stay inside. So we're anticipating that vitamin D deficiency is climbing even higher than it had been previously. Individuals with dark skin have more difficulty absorbing the sun rays that would produce vitamin D in our body. So those of us with darker skin, Black and Brown, we naturally have an increased risk for vitamin D deficiency. And often we have to take supplements. The risk of being out in the sun for an extended period of time and the association with cancer often is causes fear in many people. And so we're inside, we're only exposed to the sun for 15, 20 minutes at a time, and we use sunscreen. All of those decrease our risk of being vitamin D deficient. And then as we age, so naturally as we age, our bodies produce less vitamin D. And also naturally as we age, we're out in the sun less. And those individuals who are living in nursing homes, nursing facilities, aren't out as much and have very little sun exposure. So there's an extremely high risk of vitamin D deficiency in our elderly, especially in the Black and Brown community. And also our diets, because the secondary source of vitamin D, I remember I said the initial source is from the sun. About 80% of our vitamin D comes from the sun. The sun rays hit our skin. Our bodies will absorb that and it goes through the process of activating vitamin D in our body, utilizing both our kidneys and our liver. So that's 80% of our vitamin D, how it's produced. The other 20% comes from our diet. So eating fatty foods, eggs, those type of food will help improve our vitamin D levels. But because most of us are eating fast food, because this world is moving so fast, we're all eating out at restaurants, we may not be eating properly. That contributes to our low vitamin D level, and why often many of us would have to take supplements to maximize our vitamin D level. I'll speak just very quickly on the two forms of vitamin D. You'll hear people say vitamin D, or they may specify vitamin D2, which is what's often prescribed by your doctor. It's more of a plant-based type vitamin D, and at higher doses, it requires a prescription from your physician. When we're speaking of vitamin D, we're speaking of the second form, vitamin D3. So when we speak of vitamin D and the vitamin D supplements, we're specifying vitamin D3, which is what's naturally produced by our body. It's the vitamin D that God has given us. But when we're not exposed to his wonderful sun, we sometimes have to supplement. When we speak of correcting our vitamin D level, if you can, it's wonderful if you have your doctor draw your vitamin D level so you'll know where you're starting. If you don't know where you're starting, then typically we just talk about being on a maintenance level of vitamin D. But if you know your level, typically for children, they require about 2,000 international units daily of vitamin D, 1,000 and 2,000 to get to an optimal level and to maintain that level. In adults, we typically may require 2,000 to 4,000 international units, so 2,000 to 4,000 international units to maintain a healthy vitamin D level. And if you have issues with vitamin D absorption, so those of us with darker skin, so black and brown, those with obesity, people with chronic illness, sometimes you require an even higher dose, around 5,000 to 6,000 international units a day, to maintain a healthy or optimal vitamin D level. And that's just for maintenance health for your overall body health. And now Dr. Gaddy will speak to us about the amount of vitamin D that you may need to maintain an optimal immune health, so to be able to fight infections. So Dr. Gaddy, I'll hand it over to you to speak about the immune system and vitamin D.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kimberly Battle Miller, for a great presentation. In a few minutes, you have given us the foundation of what vitamin D is, not in terms of its efficacy to our health, our general health, and in some of the sources, some of the sources of vitamin D. Thank you so much for a great presentation. You're watching the Progressive Mind Show. We are live on Facebook. Look for Progressive Minds. On YouTube, it's the Progressive Mind Show. Please join us now as we engage these brilliant people, these doctors who are championing the cause of vitamin D and try to let us know, try to understand the importance of vitamin D to our health. Again, I encourage you to share the feed whilst you're watching us on Facebook and YouTube. For those who have already joined us, John Obed Epe, Maggie Lubia, Sylvia Vines, and Nanama, and a couple others. I will come to you in a little bit. Folks who have joined us on social media, I will be coming to you in a little bit. But so far, we have a few people who have joined us. We need you to keep sharing the feed so we can get this message out there. Okay, so make sure you are sharing the feed right now. Now, you can also listen to this show live on MyStar Radio, based out of in Washington, D.C. MyStar Radio is a Pan-African a media outlet or online radio station for the discerning listener. Now we shall listen to, now that we've listened to Dr. Kimberly, we will want to listen to Dr. Banu Gadi. Please go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, and thank you so much. Thank you for having us here. As Dr. Kim mentioned, vitamin D is extremely crucial to maintain proper health. and it is no it is the same with our immune system as well. So the thing is, it is not only essential for maintaining overall health, but it is for immune health as well.
Okay.
We will just take a look at it in the next few minutes. Also, for immune system to work normally, vitamin D is extremely essential. And as Dr. Kim mentioned, every cell in our body has a vitamin D receptor. And that vitamin D receptor, when it is there, and the way the physiology works is when there is a receptor, there has to be a complement. And the complement is vitamin D. And that receptor expects to be filled with the complement. And when that happens, when that binding happens, that is when the vitamin D receptor can do its job properly. And the problem is when there are low levels of vitamin D, and it contributes to the dysfunctional immune system. And also our modern day existence, it is characterized by many diseases that can be characterized as immune deficiency disorders, like all autoimmune disorders fall into that category. And also, it predisposes us to various illnesses like viral and bacterial infections. And also, that is, the medical literature is replete with evidence towards that. And also, benefits of optimal vitamin D levels to prevent infections, and both viral and bacterial infections is very well documented. And also, the same thing is true with COVID-19 infection, and also normal influenza. And also, if we look at flu in the past, and flu was treated with high doses of vitamin D as well. And prevention and contract. See, maintaining proper levels of vitamin D is extremely important, as Dr. Kim mentioned. And the COVID-19, and the thing is, what we need to notice here is this virus is not directly fatal. The thing is, once the the viral infection starts, what it does is, as it is multiplying, as it is replicating in the respiratory epithelium and epithelial cells in the throat, in the mouth, and eventually in the lungs, what is happening is this, this proliferation, unmitigated proliferation of this virus, causes the immune system to respond to this pathogen. And if the immune system is dysfunctional, and if it is not properly modulated, that is where the real problem is. Okay, and if the immune system is not working properly, the person is in serious trouble. And also the another challenge with this is the people are infective even while asymptomatic. And we got conflicting reports from the WHO and various health organizations that the people are infected while asymptomatic, and they are not infected while asymptomatic. But I think we have seen enough evidence to show that it is even people who are do not have any symptoms can spread the disease. And also in the later stages of the disease, when the lungs are involved and the immune system is fully active, I'm not saying fully functional, if it is active. And if the immune system is dysfunctional, that is when the problem happens. And there is something called cytokine storm. Cytokines are the molecules or the chemical messengers which the body uses, the immune system uses to fight off the invading organisms. And if those cytokines are not controlled, and if there are inflammatory cytokines, and there are the anti-inflammatory cytokines, and based on how much vitamin D we have, this immune reaction can go either way. It can go towards inflammatory branch. It can go either to non-inflammatory branch. And the problem is, when vitamin D levels are low, it always goes towards this immune reaction shifts towards inflammatory branch. And so much so that one of the inflammatory cytokines called IL-6 is measured in this disease, and is responsible for most of the lung injury that happens in this disease. And cytokine storm is the characteristic climactic event in this. And once the cytokines start going up, like we can measure it, and we can measure IL-6. And as IL-6 goes up, and saturations and the oxygenation capacity of the lungs, it goes down very quickly. and within a matter of hours, and even not even days, the saturation can fall to a point where the person is gasping for air, and that is when the people require to be mechanically ventilated. And also, we have seen how that worked out here in New York itself. And if we look at the mechanically ventilated patients, 88% of the mechanically ventilated patients ended up dying. Also, there is another called these inflammatory cytokines. What they do is they produce immense amount of inflammation in the body, and this inflammation happens at various levels. And if it happens at the endothelial layer of the blood vessels, that is what causes this disseminated intravascular coagulation. And that means the blood clots, the microclots, and they appear everywhere, and they seem to plug up the lungs and capillary beds of the lungs, and that also is responsible for people gasping and for air and not being able to oxygenate the blood. And now, and also it results in severe hypoxia, and the people are not able to get enough oxygen, and also severe endothelial dysfunction, and that leads to multi-organ failure and eventually to death. And all this happens in a matter of, sometimes in a matter of a day or two. And people think that they're okay, they're able to breathe well, and they have a pulse oximeter, their oxygen levels are okay, they're good, wonderful. But once the cytokine storm hits and the saturations are going down, there is nothing that can stop this and properly functioning. So the takeaway from all this is this, that properly functioning immune system is well regulated and effectively modulated, and vitamin D plays an important role in modulating that immune system. And if our vitamin D levels are low, we are dead, and that is there is no question about that. And there are several studies to prove that. And some studies, if some people, if anybody, a COVID patient is vitamin D deficient, if they fall into that group, the mortality in that group is 99%. And if yes, it is that high. And also, if it is insufficient, okay, that is like between 20 and 30 nanograms per ml of vitamin D levels in the blood, in that group, 88% mortality rate. And then, if you have sufficient levels of vitamin D in that group, the mortality rate is only 4%. It is that dramatic. And also, how does it work? Okay, proper vitamin D levels it can suppress the viral replication, because this virus is not does not have the mechanisms or the paraphernalia or the ability to replicate on its own, and it has to employ our body's cellular transcription mechanisms to do that. And for that to happen, somehow it has to hijack this vitamin D receptor, because vitamin D receptor is a nuclear receptor, and that controls a lot of the cellular transcription mechanisms. So somehow the vitamin, if we have proper levels of vitamin D, there is evidence that it can suppress the viral replication. And also it can modulate, as I have already told, it can modulate the immune system. It can modulate innate immunity, that is the first line of defense, and it can modulate the adaptive immunity, that is the specific immunity, specific defense. And it can prevent common viral illnesses. And also it can modulate the renin-angiotensin system. One feature that we see in COVID patients is this: their pulse rate keeps going up and up and up. Okay, in the resting pulse rate in these individuals, what we have seen is this. We have seen resting pulse rates of up to 150 plus beats per minute, and that which causes a severe stress on the cardiovascular system. And some people, the pulse rates were not able to be controlled, and they went up to almost 170, and heart stopped suddenly. And that is what we have seen. I have seen that happen. And also that renin-angiotensin system can be modulated very effectively by vitamin D. So it can improve the stability of the respiratory epithelium, and also it can improve the stability, it can do that by improving the tight junction integrity. And we can see that very easily. And people are suffering, and their saturations are going down to either 80, but in normal people, the oxygen saturation, O2 saturation, is around 95 plus. But in COVID patients who are having cytokine storm, in them the saturations can go down to 70s very quickly. And even when they have 70s saturation, and as soon as we administer a proper dose of vitamin D, within half an hour, we see their levels come up from 70s to almost 90s very quickly. And that is what we have seen. And that is really good news and very exciting news, that vitamin D works not only in the long term, but it works in a very short term. And that is, it does not need to be converted to active form. That's what I mean to tell you.
Mhm.
Also, it can improve the endothelial stability, and it can prevent the sequelae leading to these blood clots. And one measure that we have seen for the blood clots to form is, we measure the D dimer levels in the blood. And those D dimer levels in these COVID patients who are in the cytokine storm, they can go to almost 500 or lower nanograms per lower, or is the proper is the correct level for the D dimer. But in these patients, what we have seen in one day, the D dimer levels are going up to almost 5,000 or 8,000 or 7,000. And that means there are blood clots forming everywhere in the body. And as soon as we administer vitamin D, proper doses, within one day, we have seen these D dimer levels come from 7,000, 8,000 to almost less than 500. It is just phenomenal. So it can do all this. Just proper vitamin D can do all this. And some patients are using vitamin D in high doses and seems to address these challenges. And also, and also one more thing, always consult your physician or your health care practitioner when you're taking vitamin D. And also be knowledgeable about vitamin D and how to correct your vitamin D levels. And also the goal is about 60 to 100 nanograms per ml of vitamin D level in your blood. And if what we have noticed, and what I have noticed in dealing with patients in India, is even when people have this 60 to 100 nanograms per ml, when we are able to quickly bring that level up, and still there is some immune dysfunction, which can be addressed by constantly giving smaller doses up to about 2,000 units every half an hour to these patients, active COVID patients, to address the cytokine storm. So that is something that we have to get the data on and report it in the subsequent meetings. And also in the single doses of up to 400,000 or even 600,000 units have been used safely in several studies, and those studies are coming more and more in the scientific literature. And how we have come to this conclusion, with this higher levels of vitamin D, is this. And we have, several pharmacies, and me and my brother-in-law, we have about 17 pharmacies on Long Island. Long Island, as you know, has been the epicenter of this COVID-19 infection. And we have being an essential business, we had a dilemma. The thing is, when this virus was making its rounds in Italy and China and various other places, we knew that it is a matter of time. It's going to come here. So we had the obligation to protect our employees, because this 60 to 100 nanograms per ml, that level proved to be protective in the previous coronavirus infections like SARS and MERS viruses, SARS in 2002 and MERS in 2010. So our goal was to bring their levels up very quickly. So we started giving them in February, for second week of February, we started giving them 20,000 units a day, 10,000 units in the morning and 10,000 units at night. And for about 6 to 8 weeks, we have done that. And in 6 to 8 weeks, we were able to bring their levels up to about 80 to 100 nanograms per ml. So, and that seemed to be protective. And none of our employees and their family members got infected with COVID. And that indeed is good news. And then we started seeing these COVID cases all around us in our communities. And so what I did was, I thought like this: okay, so you know what? We were able to protect our employees because we were able to give it to them in over this 1 million units of vitamin D over 6 to 8 weeks. And if somebody has COVID infection, they don't have that kind of time. So we had to compress that time frame. So what I did was, I compressed that time frame into about 5 days. 1 million units. And we started giving that across about 10 physicians' offices here, about 5 to 10 physicians' offices, and some nursing homes also. So we started giving that dose. So 200,000 units of vitamin D3, 50,000 units 4 times a day for 5 days to active COVID patients. And lo and behold, every one of them recovered in an ambulatory setting. And most of them, the age ranges from 10 to 79, and all of them recovered, and 3 of them needed to be admitted in the hospital. And even them, those people didn't need ventilation, so they got discharged quite healthy.
So
So it is such a
if I may interject a little for a second, Dr. Gadi. So
yes.
you were saying that you have your clinic have been able to treat people with coronavirus. You basically have been able to treat them with a combination of vitamin D and other medications. And can you emphasize on that so we can get this?
Okay, no, these people were probably, they were getting other medication. There was no other medication other than the Z-Pak and hydroxychloroquine. And hydroxychloroquine was given to these people, and also, but the thing is, vitamin D made all the difference. Even the people who were who were taking hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pak, they were failing in the sense that their cough and they were having this incessant cough and fevers, and also their D-dimer levels and the inflammatory markers were going up. But as soon as we administered vitamin D, we started these inflammatory markers going down like magic. Within 1 day, they started responding. With their cough was going down, and their fevers were subsiding, and they were able to breathe a lot better. So, so this is nothing short of just miraculous at that time to us, and the clinicians and the physicians that were working with us. So that's
Now,
what happened.
now are these patients? Do you treat these patients in the clinic? Like, do you admit them, or how is the treatment? If you can.
No. In ambulatory setting, they were sent home
Okay.
with a proper vitamin D prescription.
Wow. And listeners, I mean, we know the coronavirus is very prevalent in the United States, but we know some of the hot centers will be New York, right? Some of the epicenter, I would say New York is probably still the epicenter when it comes to the coronavirus. And you live in that that state, and I'm sure you have seen tons and tons of cases. Actually, let me just take the opportunity to send my sympathy and my condolences to my own brother-in-law's father, who lost a family member, and I think maybe 2 days ago to coronavirus. And this is something we meant to do from the beginning of the show, but we kind of lost track due to our issues. But yeah, we want to send this my heartfelt condolence to Randy Ajuma, wherever you are, you and your father. I wish you. I wish your relative, the peace of God. May her soul rest in peace. And I'm sending my heartfelt condolences to you. We're praying with you. The family is behind you. In due time, we shall be giving you a call. So now, and again, yeah, this person died out of coronavirus. And so maybe had we known, your treatment, who knows, who knows the help that they may have gotten. And so you being in that area, and you speaking of how vitamin D has been able to help a lot of people who are suffering from coronavirus. Who knows how many lives you have saved? Now, can you tell us specifically the name of your clinic? Because people would like to maybe look you up and check you out. So we want to know that you are real. So maybe can you give us some specific information regarding your practice and you and stuff?
Okay, so I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of pharmacy. I own pharmacies, and my pharmacies are in New York. One is Lease Drugs Pharmacy in Floral Park, New York, in Long Island, and another one is Long Beach Chemist in Long Beach, New York, and the third one is Prescription Center of Long Island in Hempstead, New York. So
Okay.
these are the pharmacies. And we were, because this is an over-the-counter item and it did not need a prescription, we were able to do that. And also we were able to reach out to several doctors' offices here, and their patients were able to be treated in an ambulatory setting with excellent results.
Okay, so you in your presentation you also mentioned the importance of the efficacy of vitamin D to our oral health.
Yes.
Now, can you elaborate a little bit on that? I know Reverend Salas Vines is waiting patiently to deliver, but if you can elaborate a little bit on that, and so we can go to him.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the thing is, this is not only this is not only an immune modulator, but it modulates it is a gene modulator as well, and it can modulate the various genes that are expressed. And also it is like, all these genetic disorders are thought of as, there is nothing we can do with respect, if it is genetic, there is nothing we can do. And all these genes, we were given an understanding that these genes are running like wild horses without any riders on them. But I think more and more we are finding out that this genetic expression is a function of epigenetic influence. So there are this epigenome, that is, there are environmental factors, or proper vitamin D levels, or proper nutrient levels. I think these things can affect how our genes are expressed. And I'll give you one example. In our church, there is a police officer who had a coronavirus infection, and he suffered from a genetic disorder called thalassemia, and his blood levels or hemoglobin levels were always low. The maximum that he had, for as long as he can remember, was a hemoglobin level of 6.6, and oftentimes it fell to almost 4. And he had to be given transfusion in the last year and a half. And he was told by his doctor that he ever gets coronavirus infection, and he will suffer immensely. And the doctor did not give him any chances of any survival, and he did get coronavirus. This this brother, he got coronavirus, and this was in March 29th, and the time frame he got positive, March 28th, and April 2nd we sent him the vitamin D, this 20 capsules of 50,000 units. And then he took that over 5 days. And on the 3rd day, he calls me and says, "Brother, this is just amazing. Okay, and you need to put it out on the internet, because there many people can benefit like me." And he started feeling quite normal. He was in the bed and he was completely rendered immobile, and he was having a lot of trouble, with cough and other things. Within 3 days, he was good, and within 9 days, he got tested negative, and he returned to the force on April 9th. And then, this is not all. And just fast forward about 2 months from there, and on June 6th, he calls me back and says, and he got his June 2nd, he gave a sample of his blood to be tested, and on June 6th, he calls me and says this. You got to see my blood report. And his hemoglobin level came to 13.9, which is completely normal. And that never happened to him before. And his doctor was surprised, and he was surprised. And this is what I'm saying. The thing is, vitamin D is not only an immune modulator; it is a genetic expression. It modulates our genetic expression as well. So in this brother, he was since then he was able to do things that he was never able to do. Go for a jog, for instance.
Okay.
And,
So, Dr. Gadi, if you say genetic modulation, not most of us are not scientists. What does that mean exactly? If you say vitamin D modulates our genetic,
yes, what it is modulation means it upregulates what needs to be what is beneficial for us, and it downregulates, it suppresses what is not beneficial for us. So there are so many genes, and our genetic code contains a lot of genes, and all these genes are not expressed, okay, and they are suppressed by epigenetic influence. And some genes are expressed and some genes are not expressed. That balance of what is expressed and what is not expressed is known as modulation.
Wow. Thank you so much for breaking this down. We are being informed a lot by this presentation. And so please help share the feed if you're watching us on Facebook and on YouTube. You're watching live the Progressive Mind Show in the studios. Here are my great guests, Dr. Kimberly Battle Miller, Dr. Banu Gandhi, all the way from New York, and Reverend Stillers Vines. You have not heard from him yet. Wait for his presentation. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're talking about the efficacy of vitamin D to our immune system and to the Black and brown community. Some would ask, what is brown? Now, we understand that we are Black people, but to some extent, folks, our brothers and sisters from the Indian, Pakistan, Sri Lankan, Bangladesh communities, and to a larger extent, sometimes the Afro-Latina, sometimes some people consider or refer to them as brown community, brown, brown skin, brown people. But and so that's what we have it. I mean, those are the terminologies we have for different ethnic groups. So Black and brown group of people, black and brown people are prone to be deficient when it comes to vitamin C, or if that's the right way of putting it, right? We are vitamin D deficient by the fact that we have melanin in our skin that protects the sun, that protects us from the sun, and so we are not able to absorb enough. Is it IU or UI? What's the name of that thing that we?
No, UVB rays do not get to where they need to be for the vitamin D to be produced.
The UV rays is the word I was looking for. Right. And so this is very, very important. So in that case, if you're not getting enough vitamin D through the sun, which you're supposed to be getting from, where else can we get it from? And what can we be doing? And what are some of the preventive measures and so on? And how can we participate in this awareness creation to let people know the importance of vitamin D, even in this coronavirus pandemic era? Very, very crucial. It's 2 minutes to 7 p.m. Here. We want to take a short break. Before that, Rebecca Mode is watching us. She says, may God be with you. And Bridget Amenyo is saying, good evening, Progressive Minds. Good evening to you, Bridget. Imani Mohammed says, she just says hi, and then she says, Marvin Green. Nanama says, good evening to you. Nanama, thank you for joining in. And John says, it is always a pleasure to meet health professionals in forums like this. Your choice of panelists communicate your interest in reaching out to communities with the education we all need. Looking forward to learning about the health benefits of vitamin D. Thank you so much, my brother, for your great comment. Sylvia Vine says, thank you for presenting this info to the community. Thank you so much. Maggie Lubia is also here with us. Jocelyn says, very good show. Thank you so much, Jocelyn. My beautiful sister, please share the feed whilst you're watching. And so on this note, we would like to take a short break. When we come back, we will definitely listen to Reverend Sellers Vines on his presentation. Remember, we're talking about vitamin D efficacy, its importance to the immune system, the coronavirus pandemic we're dealing with, and to the Black and brown communities. You are listening to the Progressive Mind Show right here on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube. Currently, we are being carried on My Star Radio out there in Washington, D.C. My Star is a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. Stay tuned. We shall be right back.
Check out this beautifully made artistry of coffee tables made from a combination of recycled tires, jute ropes, wood, and fabric to suit your style. Yes, we make to order. These coffee tables can help you make a statement in your bedrooms, offices, and living rooms. But remember, we only ship within the USA and Canada after shipping cost is paid. Call Jasper Designs on 1-306-203-2650 or email us at doduyayra@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram at Jasper Love or follow Pearl Yara Agboka on Facebook. Don't be left out. Please place your orders now.
Welcome back to the Progressive Mind Show. This evening, we are joined by Dr. Kimberly Battle Miller, Dr. Banu Gadi, and Reverend Sellers Vines. They are educating us on the importance and the need for vitamin D for everyone. If you just joined us, this is the Progressive Mind Show. It's 7-1, a minute after 7 p.m. CST. Today's date is the 10th, is October 21st. My name is Senna, aka Alinko, and we are going to listen to Reverend Sellers Vines at this moment. Reverend, your colleagues have educated us immensely on vitamin D so far. Please go ahead with your presentation, and then we can possibly take some questions afterwards. Go ahead, sir. Okay, I think we have you on mute, so maybe if you can just take your excellent.
There we go. It's a habit when it doesn't need to be a habit sometimes. But thank you so very much for having us on your show. We greatly appreciate it. The information that is that has been shared with you and will continue to be shared with you for a while. It's vital that that everyone pays close attention to the science, to the evidence that's being presented by the medical professionals that are on today, and Dr. Kim Battle Miller and also Dr. Banu Gadi. And there's a host of medical professionals that are within community that's sharing this information that is literally life-changing. And just to give just a little background, if I could, just on what really just kind of prompted the desire to recognize this agenda for what it was, and to do everything that I personally could to make sure that it was pushed to our community. One, for the main reason, because we want our communities to live, and that's most important. And so I'm sure everyone has that same desire. But when we first started facing COVID-19, it was just a huge question mark on how we were going to survive this pandemic, because it's something that no one, has never experienced. That's within our age groups, So, I began to just take a look at it and started doing some research on what would it take to, and what could be done to help people survive this. And I stumbled across the efficacy of vitamin D and its importance to our immune system, and what it does innately to help us fight infections such as this. And which led me to my great church member, Dr. Kim Battle, and we had a wonderful conversation about it, and I shared with her the information that I found in the research and the evidence that I was finding on vitamin D3, and she took a look at it, and she didn't brush me to the side. I'm not a medical professional. But because of her care and her loving heart, she and her even having the desire to, to find out what needs to be done against this thing as well, she took me serious, and she took a look at the information that I provided, and she said, you may have something here, so she confirmed, the information that I was finding. And my introduction to Dr. Gadi was through research. I'm the type of person, I just believe that no one's a stranger, and so I reached out to Dr. Renu Matani, who's in India, and I was just looking through some of the feeds from one of her YouTube talks on vitamin D3, and I saw Dr. Gadi's comment. I was like, oh, I need to call this guy and try and reach him. And I reached out to him, and because I think he left I think it was just through his name, actually. And I looked him up on Facebook, And there he was, and I just, positioned myself, and I just asked a couple of questions and to see if he would be interested in speaking with me. And immediately he called me, and he began to share more information with me about the benefit of vitamin D3 and what he has done, and what was being done in New York. And Dr. Kim and Dr. Gaddy met, and along with Dr. Sharif, and we formed a great team to make sure that this information is going out to our communities, because we need help. Not saying that our government and governments have not stepped up to the bat, to the plate, and shared information, but as we're learning today, a lot of you that's been unaware of the benefit of vitamin D3, that equation of that piece of the puzzle is not really being pushed in mainstream, and if it is being pushed in mainstream, it's not necessarily being shared in such a way that is reflective of the evidence that's been out in years. So hence, we decided to join together and to share this life-saving information with people. And I definitely want to make sure that I mention Dr. Leslie Ray Matthews as well. Dr. Leslie Ray Matthews, he's pretty much the pioneer in a large degree of vitamin D3. And it's been very instrumental over the past 15 to 20 years sharing information. He's a trauma surgeon, just a world-renowned trauma surgeon, and he uses vitamin D even through in his surgeries as a trauma surgeon, and with great results. So he's also a champion for vitamin D3 as well. So in your time, I would definitely advise anyone to just check him out and look at his background and what he has done and what he is doing as it relates to vitamin D3 and a host of others. So I just wanted to just kind of lay it out, just to make sure that we understand that, and the listening audience and the viewers, that what we're presenting it's not something that we just pulled out of the air. This is evidence-based studies that has been out for years, but to a large degree that has been suppressed for the purposes of whatever it is. But the evidence is out there, and we just wanted to make sure that as many people as possible that we are aware of what we have in vitamin D3. Because it's so affordable, so accessible. You can go to any health food store. You can go, health food store. You can go to pharmacies. You can go to grocery stores and find vitamin D3. And it's extremely accessible, and it's extremely affordable. You can purchase high quality vitamin D on the internet. Anyone can have access to vitamin D3, and it's based on the evidence that Dr. Kim and Dr. Gaddy has presented today. And you've heard how efficacious it is for our bodies during this time. So I just wanted to make sure that that just to give a little background as to why we're here. And we're not selling anything. We just wanted to make sure that our people understood what this is that we have in vitamin D3. So I'm just going to kind of just go into what we're doing just around the community. Our communities, of course, we see the large picture when we're watching television. We see the map. We see these large numbers. We see the red and the yellows and the greens on the big map. But and what's not being seen is what's happening, on the micro scale. We're not seeing what's happening within our communities. The part that we are seeing, we're seeing the long lines of testing happening within communities, but we're not really we're not digging into communities and seeing what because the larger picture comes from somewhere, you know, and it comes from what's happening within the communities, right? So so what we're doing, we've created an approach to dealing with the effects of COVID-19 within communities, and also presenting a solution to what happens within communities. And as we know, what happens within communities, we have economic standstills that are happening within our communities. We have supply and supply chains and demand disruptions happening within our communities. We're having job losses that are happening within our communities, loss of revenue to even the national treasury. All these types of things are happening. We're having product shortages. I mean, tissue, hand sanitizer, those things that we need, you know. And because winter is coming, I mean, we can truly expect some of those same shortages to be increased, just in terms of the shortage of them. I mean, we have travel restrictions. It's all types of things that are impeding our progress and on human capital and human production and human ideas, creating a lot of fear within our communities. You know, it's creating a large amount of fear within our children. You know, this is something that never happened again. You know, so there's levels of anxiety that we're dealing with that we've never dealt with before. Of course, we're seeing high rates of mortality that's happening within our communities. Like, you know, I mean, people compare it to the flu, just in terms of cases and death, but it can't be compared to it just can't be compared to.
If I may interject for a second, and I really appreciate you giving us the background of this campaign that your organization is on. Can you give me the name of your organization again, please?
Well, the name of the group that we've started is the United for Health 2020.
Okay, United for Health. Exactly, because I know you run, I mean, you are the CEO and president of the Natural Vines LLC. You also, you wear many hats. I think you also, no, I don't think, you are the vice president of strategic solutions for the Joseph's Assignment Global Initiative, which is a not-for-profit umbrella for New Faith Baptist Church International. Now, with this position, you have visited a number of countries across the globe, providing water, education, shelter, food, economic and community development initiatives. You have catered for over 630,000 people in over 22 countries. Now, so you have, when it comes to missionary work or community development, whatnot, you have been there with your work. And I know that United for Health, this group, I know you have been taking this message with you as you go along with on your missionary work. Tell me what you have seen as you work on this missionary assignments when it comes to the knowledge or the awareness or the awareness of vitamin D in the Black and Brown community.
Sure. Well, what we've seen over the years, and actually seeing what I've seen around the world started prior to working for the Joseph Assignment. I used to be in the United Nations, where I had an opportunity to travel the world, and it was, it wasn't just enough to go into these communities or into these countries and just, do the touring thing and just be a part of whatever the military assignment was. It was, I always had a pull to go into the hearts of communities where pretty much no one is gone, or not has gone, but where I wanted to see it all. I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to see it. So I've seen suffering in countries around the world, and in my time with New Faith Baptist Church International, as well as the Joseph assignment, I've had an opportunity to see it on levels that I personally wasn't prepared for.
Okay.
Some of the ills that are happening around the world, specifically in Africa, where we do a lot of work, and I've seen situations where.
Have you also noticed the lack of understanding or the lack of knowledge or use of vitamin D in these communities as you go?
Absolutely. I mean, because when you get a knowledge of what vitamin D does for our bodies, you know, what it does for our immune systems, what it does for our minds, you know, in terms of dealing with anxiety and depression and things of that nature. And you see you see a direct correlation. You see a direct. Oh, thank you very much. Of what happens as a result when you don't have an efficient amount of vitamin D in your bloodstream. You can easily see that, and it goes from mental illness that's happening with, you know, and it's pretty prevalent in countries where it's not, and you see polio on levels that you didn't think existed, and based on what I'm learning and what I've learned, you can attribute a lot of that suffering to being deficient, very, very dangerously low, deficient in vitamin D. And a lot of people will say, you know, well, you're in Africa, you know, you're in the sun all the time, you know, but that's not always the case. You know, even the Maasai tribe in Kenya, the average vitamin D level in with the Maasai tribe is only 60 nanograms per meal. And they're hunters and gatherers. They're always in the sun, you know, and their skin is much more darker than ours, you know, much more darker than ours. But yet and still, their nanograms per meal on average is only 60, right?
Okay.
So, you know,
and what's the requirement? What is the number of the level of vitamin D that everybody's supposed to have?
Well, like
so.
Between 60 and 100 nanograms per meal is 80 to 100 is optimum, but 60 to 100 is what you want. You know,
60 to 100.
Absolutely.
Dr. Kim wanted to say something. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'll add to that. When we look at just the maintenance of care, your doctor will probably try and maintain your level around 30, 25, 30. Just for normal health, but in the pandemic, we try and push it up to above 60. They'll consider you deficient if you're less than 12.
Okay, now, go ahead.
And then, I'm sorry, Alinko, I wanted to speak to the question that you had about lack of understanding or knowledge. Even in the medical community, I spend a lot of time speaking about vitamin D because even my colleagues aren't aware of the literature on vitamin D, especially as it impacts your immune system and the benefits in the COVID-19 pandemic. We weren't taught that in medical school. We taught about some supplements, but not specifically about vitamin D and the immune system. I have additional training in integrative medicine. If you come from integrative medicine or herbal medicine or holistic medicine, you'll know about vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc, and the ability to fight infection. But for a general practitioner, we know it about osteoporosis and overall health, less so about using it as a tool to help prevent
and I know,
fight infection.
I don't know if Dr. Gadi wanted to add something. You were nodding to what he was saying. If you wanted to add something quickly, please go ahead and do so.
No, I think they covered it extremely well, Dr. Kim and the Reverend Vines. Go ahead, Reverend Vines.
Right, go ahead. Yes, before you continue, Reverend Vines, I also want you to elaborate a little more, because you see, the thing is, based off what you just said, you know, you mentioned how, you know, folks in maybe I hope you were referring to Africa, you know, some of the countries in Africa during your missionary trips, and how people were struggling from polio and other diseases and whatnot. And we know that malaria is very, very, very prevalent in these areas. India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Africa, right? So can vitamin D also help in fighting against malaria? Because I think the number one killing disease in Africa is malaria, or I can speak for Ghana. It kills Africans more than anything else. Can vitamin D help us? And if it can, I think we ought to start pushing for that. Maybe if it can help us and we are not taking enough vitamin D, assuming that we're getting from the sun, then it's because of lack of knowledge. And as such, we have to start promoting that heavily. But please help confirm if vitamin D can help us in the fight of malaria and other diseases, as you mentioned. Reverend Vines, you can continue with your submission, and please maybe help us respond to this, the question that I asked. And then I'll also have Dr. Kim and Banu respond to it if you have any additional comments on this. Please go ahead.
Well, actually, I would just like to turn it over to Dr. Gaddy or Dr. Kim to answer that question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Dr. Gaddy, go ahead.
Yes. With respect to malaria, what we need to see is in any of these diseases. Okay. And so what we need to consider is some people are affected by it and some people are not.
Okay.
And that means I think immune system is the key in combating any of these illnesses. And even if we look at, in the medieval times, if we look at plague, and there were certain people who were not affected by that at all. And these are the people who were running towards the infirm to tend to them. And even though certain people are dying by the droves. And even in the Spanish flu situation, some people did not get affected at all. Mm-hmm. So what we need to see is, and we don't know the vitamin D data in those illnesses, but
okay.
Their immune system plays an extremely important role in combating any illness. So I would venture to guess that having proper vitamin D levels would definitely help with malaria as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Kim, if you wanted to add something to that, please go ahead. If not, we can go back to Reverend Vines.
Yes, if I could, what Dr. Gaddy said is actually accurate. But I'll just looking at a study and this is from 2014. As far back, there was a study that was done in Ugandan children, and what they found is that vitamin D deficiency was common in Ugandan children, and that the children with severe malaria had significantly lower levels of vitamin D than the healthy community children, and that the lower levels of vitamin D were associated with an increased odds of severe malaria. And then there are other studies that show the same thing. So it may not prevent you from getting malaria, but it will help. If your immune system is optimized with vitamin D, you may get a less severe case. So it will keep you from getting as sick. And we found the same thing with influenza and the same thing with COVID-19. So you may still get the infection, but you won't become as severely ill.
Unfortunately, we lost Reverend Vines. I was going to ask. Looks like we're getting him back in the stream. Okay, great, Reverend Vines. We didn't want to lose you, so thank goodness you're back. Can you hear us? Okay, I think he's trying to get his situation sorted out. While we wait on him, can we find out maybe? Before we do that, let's take a few comments from our audience on Facebook. So let's see. I think we have the first one from John, and I'm going to try and get to it. Okay, so John is saying, "Hi, Dr. Miller. I work in a low-income community as a disease prevention specialist. Most of my clients are people living with HIV and related sexually transmitted infections. Now I am already involved in COVID-19 contact tracing and testing. How beneficial is vitamin D to my clients other than supplements? are there specific fruits or vegetables that may serve the same purpose?
Thank you for the question, and that's an excellent question. In response to the first question, would it be beneficial in your patient population? Absolutely. It boosts not just your immune system, looking beyond your immune system, it maximizes all of your body functions, heart, lungs, kidney, bone, brain. So in that sense, for your patients who have immune deficiency, absolutely it would be beneficial in their health. It helps with fatigue, it helps with the aches and the pain. So yes, for that population. And in addition to supplements, you can get it naturally. 20% we said can actually come from our diet. So fatty fishes, so like salmon, any type of fatty fish, some vegetables, some beans can also provide it. So the plant-based, the beans, the fatty fish. And Dr. Gaddy, would you like to add to that?
Yes, I'd like to add a couple of fruits to that, and fruits and vegetables, and the fruits and vegetables which are rich, are bright in color, like beets, are known to enhance the nitric oxide production, and which can improve the health of the circulatory system. And also the pomegranates, for instance, they can help with the circulation as well.
Okay, so beets, pomegranate. Okay, great response. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and recognize those who just joined us or who joined us not too long ago. While we were during the beginning, we had mentioned a few names, but we have Georgina Kuma who just joined us. She says, "Hi, Senna. I am watching from home. Thank you so much, Georgina, for joining the feed." We have Danielle O'Neill Vines, who's also watching us. He says, "Good information. Thank you so much, Danielle, for joining us." And then Johnny Woods just joined us. He says, "Great show. Another great discussion as always." Thank you, my brother, Johnny Woods. You are one of our top fans. Please help share the feed. We need you to promote this so that we can get the message out there. Vitamin D and its efficacy to our immune system, how it can fight COVID-19, and its importance within the Black and Brown communities. The awareness, the information, the knowledge is very, very important. 728 here in the studios. You are listening to the Progressive Mind Show. Currently, you can listen to us also on My Star Radio out in Washington, D.C. My Star Radio is a Pan-African radio station for the discerning listener. We want to take a short break. When we come back, we would like to know the other sources. Reverend Vines, I remember when we spoke previously, you had mentioned some interesting sources of vitamin C. You talked about, is it the goat skin or the lamb skin or something like that? Something about the goat skin, right?
No, it was sheep and lamb, the wool of sheep and lamb. That's where vitamin D is also, just a high quality vitamin D is derived from.
Okay, no, hold on.
The wool.
Yeah, no, hold on.
Sure.
That is very good. That's very good. I want people to listen to that. We want to dedicate some time for that. We just want to take this short break. When we come back, we would be getting into all of that good stuff. Very, very good information. Stay tuned. We shall be right back. Welcome back to the Progressive Mind Show. My name is Sana, aka Alinko, and we are in the studios talking about vitamin D efficacy. If you want to call into this show and ask a question or contribute, which we want you to do, share with us your knowledge or your understanding. Actually, if you're in doubt, we have the experts here to answer your questions on vitamin D. The number is 815-277-5047, 815-277-5047. You can also, we also are encouraging our listeners and our audience to tell your friends and your family to support the Progressive Mind Show. Donate to us. That's how we are able to sustain what we're doing and to even make it better. The website to do that at is theprogressivemindshow.com. Theprogressivemindshow.com. If you have Cash App, we encouraging you to be benevolent to us. It is the Cash App payment ID is the $ Sena Alinko. Sena is SENA, Alinko ALINCO. Go ahead and make a contribution to us. It goes a long way in supporting us. Now, before we start the show, again, one of the things I wanted to do before we got through out of gear was to acknowledge the issue that's going on in Nigeria currently. Nigeria is not on fire. I won't say that, but the youth in Nigeria are rising up. They say it is time to end SARS. It is time to end SARS, and the cry of Nigerian youth is the cry of all African youth. This is a time we are saying, African leaders, some of African leaders, you have taken us for granted for far too long. This year, this time, we're saying no more to bully, no more to taking us for granted, no more. This is the time to end SARS. And so we are going to be dedicating next week's show to dive into SARS and what is going on in Nigeria. We are asking and calling on all world leaders to go to the aid of the youth in Nigeria so that their own law enforcement that are supposed to be protecting the civilians of Nigeria will not be taking undue advantage of the citizenry. The situation is dire, it is urgent, and we are calling on the world to listen and to pay attention to what is going on in Africa, specifically in Nigeria. All right. And to our brothers and sisters who are fighting the good cause in Nigeria, we are all with you. Our spirit is with you. The youth of Africa's spirit is with you. And we know that the voices of God, of the people is the voice of God. The voice of the people is the voice of God. The people are saying, stop brutalizing them. Just give them the chance to live to their full life potential. Just give them the opportunity to flourish. Do not brutalize them. Protect them as you are supposed to be protecting. And so on that note, we will go back to our audience, go back to our guests to focus on why we're here this evening. But I really wanted to get this out of my chest. Next week, Wednesday, we'll be going deep into it. If you are an African, wherever you are, go on social media, tweet, post, say something, add your voice to the fight of the Nigerian youth in Nigeria right now. The voice and the call is ending SARS, end SARS, end SARS. Well, my great people, I think we have looks like we have a caller on the line. I really wanted to get this out of my chest. Next week, Wednesday. Okay, we are getting feedback. Caller, please tell us your name and why you're calling, please.
Yeah, my name is Akwete Akron.
Okay.
And I just want to offer a little bit of a contribution, not really to ask a question. It's very strange in my mind that you actually talk about vitamin D, but it's actually a very, very interesting topic and something that needs to be talked about. I work in mental health right now, and I'm studying to get my degree as a psych and mental health nurse practitioner. And vitamin D is something that we test our patients for all the time. So when a patient comes, especially with diseases or disorders like schizophrenia and depression, we do test them for vitamin D. And lo and behold, most of the time the vitamin D levels are very low. So many studies have been done, and they've seen that, especially in depressed people and people with schizophrenia, vitamin D plays a very, very big role. And in some tests, some studies, they've seen that low levels of vitamin D were associated with mood and affective disorders like bipolar disorder and also depression. So vitamin D is not just for, I would say, medical health, but it's also for mental health, because a lot of people are helped from this vitamin D. They've actually done studies where they just took depressed people and took them out into the sun, or they gave them more vitamin D, and without any other medication, they've actually gotten better. So especially in this pandemic time, when people are indoors a lot and people are actually having a lot of mental health issues, especially with depression, vitamin D is actually even ever more so crucial. So people definitely need to be taking vitamin D supplements and try and get as much sun as possible. A lot of times people forget about the mental health aspect of our health, but that's also there. And vitamin D not only plays a role in our medical health, but also in our mental health as well. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a very, very insightful contribution. Thank you so much, my brother Pastor 10, for your contribution to the show. We really, really appreciate it. Good information out there. If you also have an information on vitamin D or just comment or question, please call 815-277-5047. And I like to ask, I want to go to my audience and see if you can respond to a few questions and comments. So yes, Jesse Avram, he says, will this session be available on YouTube? It's currently available on YouTube right now. Okay, you can watch us live on YouTube. Type The Progressive Mind Show on YouTube. You should find us. Dr. Portia is saying, then Dr. Portia, welcome to the show again. She says, hello, Progressive Mind. This is a great discussion and important information. I am a witness that vitamin D is very necessary. My doctor started me on vitamin D over a year ago. Since then, the pain in my knees subsided. No headaches, blood count is good, energy is high, etc. Thanks for sharing this information about the supplement, because we cannot get enough from our foods. Thank you so much for sharing sharing your experience with our Dr. Portia. And Jesse Avram says, I am taking vitamin D3. How many IU should be taken per day? Can somebody respond to that?
So I'll start with our first response, which is that's a question that you should take to your physician. If possible, if you can have your level drawn, then your doctor will be able to say more specifically what an appropriate dose would be. But at a base for normal adult, anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 international units would probably help get you to a sufficient level. It may not boost you to optimal, but at least to a sufficient level from vitamin D for overall health. If you're using it to impact your ability to fight off infection or to be protective during this infective stage, I typically say 4,000 to 5,000 international units of vitamin D3 daily.
Okay, thank you so much for responding to that. And Portia is saying that she takes 10,000 IU in the mornings with breakfast. Okay. Dr. Kim, your mic was off.
I was saying that's exactly what I take. I take 10,000 units every day, daily.
Okay. Does it matter your age? Okay, in other words, does your age determine how many or how much IUs you should take?
Dr. Gaddy, would you like to respond to that? It does.
In little children, it is different, and as long as in adults, it is different. And 10,000 units a day will definitely, starting now, will definitely prepare us for the coming winter. And as we approach the winter, and if we are not careful, if our levels are low, I think 10,000 units twice a day, probably for 6 to 8 weeks, would definitely be a good good level to supplement. One caveat here is this: okay? In our modern diet and modern practices and modern living exposes us to a lot of inflammatory stress. Whenever there is an inflammation and inflammatory stress, vitamin D is consumed. Okay, so, and the vitamin D requirements that that are in the literature are very different. And the thing is, it can be different in different people also. You need to determine, along with your doctor, you need to determine what your requirement is. In some people, 5,000 may get you to where you need to be. And some people, 10,000, it may take 10,000. And some people may take higher. So it depends on what your inflammatory stress is.
Okay, thank you so much. Dr. Gadi, I don't know if you responded to the benefit or the use of vitamin D to our oral health and how, I don't know if you responded to that.
Yeah, well, with respect to oral health, thing is, vitamin D is essential in mineral metabolism, calcium and phosphorus and all these things. And oral health, to have a proper, jaw structure, vitamin D is extremely important. Vitamin D, and also, for proper bone mineralization, along with vitamin D, proper collagen supplementation is very important as well. Collagen, it builds the bone matrix, and collagen forms the basis for the bone strength as well. So as the vitamin D is allowing us to absorb the proper calcium and proper minerals. I think they need to go somewhere, and I think the collagen provides that bone matrix. 70% of the bone matrix is bone is collagen, made up of collagen. So collagen along with vitamin D would be an ideal choice for oral health.
John is asking, any interaction with vitamin D and vitamin C?
Okay, vitamin D and vitamin C. Vitamin C is a totally different. It is an antioxidant. Okay, with respect to COVID, what I can say is this. Okay, once the cytokine storm starts and there is a severe inflammation in the lungs, vitamin C can help to fight, to mitigate the downstream effects of not having enough vitamin D. So there is no interaction per se, but vitamin C and vitamin D can synergistically work to enhance the outcomes.
Okay, so the two combination can only benefit the body. I mean, you wouldn't say there's any side effects or any negative effects to the body, right?
No.
Okay. Usually people would take 1,000 grams of vitamin C, 500 grams. Like, is there any advice to how you can regulate it? So maybe, because too much of everything is bad, right? So what would be the perfect combination here? I mean, the recommended combination, if I may put it that way.
In a situation of severe cytokine storm, to mitigate the damage to the lungs, the dose is as high as 100 grams IV. 100 grams or 160 grams IV daily were used. So that is almost if you're mentioning that, so people will not be able to tolerate taking such high doses orally. That will cause severe GI distress. But in emergency room situations, doses as high as 100 grams or even higher doses have been used.
100 grams of what? D or C?
Oh, no, vitamin C. Vitamin C.
Okay. When you say cytokines, what is that?
Okay. Cytokines are these are the chemical messengers and chemical substances that immune system generates to fight off the invading organisms. Okay.
Okay.
With respect to COVID, I know this IL-6 is it is implicated in severe lung dysfunction. So
Okay.
IL-6 is one of the interleukin-6 is one of the cytokines. Or when you say, if you take antihistamines, histamine is one of the cytokines.
Okay.
Yeah.
If someone says hypervitaminosis, is there a word like that? What is that? If there is, what is it?
Hypervitaminosis is usually it's a term, vitamin D toxicity. So
Okay.
there is a lot of talk about when I suggested these doses. There's talk from the clinicians and some patients who are educated with vitamin D. They think you can have they're worried that vitamin D can cause toxicity. So
Okay.
when your levels go beyond 100, according to Institute of Medicine guidelines, 30 to 100 nanograms per ml is the right amount. and anything over 100 nanograms per ml is considered hypervitaminosis or vitamin D toxicity. So, but the problem is, when we see lifeguards in the beaches, are these fishermen who spend most of their time outside, their levels can reach by the midsummer. Their levels can reach about 150 to 160 nanograms per ml. So my personal belief is, I think even if somebody goes beyond 100, that is not toxic.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that. You see, the reason why I want to emphasize is that once people started hearing this about vitamin D, I think there'll be a rush. Oh, okay, let me just start popping vitamin D every here and there. So we want to be able to advise people of the right way of taking this so that we're not having hypovitaminosis. Is okay. Did I say the word correctly? Hypovitaminosis?
No, hypervitamin.
Hyper. Okay. All right. Reverend Vines, can you tell us about that lamb skin, goat skin type discussion that we had? Give us some, educate us on what that is all about.
It's just a different form of vitamin D, or how it's manufactured. You use the wool of lamb and sheep, and you just shave it, and you clean it in water, and boiling water. And what happens is that the molecular chemical byproduct of the sun hitting the skin, producing the D, and then the D is sucked into the fiber. It goes into the fiber of the lamb's wool. So when that wool is boiled and when it's clean, it diffuses from the wool of the sheep and the lamb, and it just floats to the top of the boiling water. And then there's a substance called a byproduct of it. It's called lanolin. And lanolin is what is used to make high quality vitamin D3. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
So, and who makes this? I mean, who makes this? I mean, did you see this done in Africa, or is this just a process that anybody? Of course, not anybody can just get to go through this process, because
there's definitely additional chemicals and well, not chemicals. I mean, nothing that's man-made goes into the development of the vitamin D3. But
Okay.
There is a process that uses the lanolin along with other ingredients to make the vitamin D. So it is definitely a process that that's someone who knows what they're doing. You just can't go and shave the wool of a lamb and go in and use it for vitamin D3. So it's best to get your vitamin D from the supplements that are in the stores.
That are in the store. But
yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to, if I could, I definitely wanted to address the brother from Nigeria and the youth wanting to get in taking a stand against COVID-19. I definitely feel the necessity behind what they would like to do, and I would definitely say keep that energy. But with COVID-19, it's best that you develop a team and it has to be done this way, because we've seen it happen in several other countries around the world where you don't have ventilators, where you don't have hydroxychloroquine or any other therapeutics that are readily available for the treatment of COVID-19. But what they do, the community comes together and they form a plan, and they utilize a plan to suppress COVID-19 within the community. And the best way to do that is for communities to come together, and that's what we're presenting, to community leaders throughout the United States and hopefully the world soon. Is that you use an approach that encompasses everyone's involvement. That be it your church leaders, get your churches involved. Get your administrators involved. Get your corporations involved. Get your aldermans and everyone involved in the process within the community, because that's where, if we're going to successfully suppress COVID-19, it has to be a communal approach, and that's what we have not seen. But again, in other countries where it is being seen, without all of the other therapeutics, COVID-19 has been successfully suppressed to a very, very large degree, right? And now, so if you're adding all the practices that we know how to fight COVID-19, that be it the mask wearing, that be it the physical distancing, that be it the washing of the hands, that be it all the other measures that I can't think of right now. But when you use all of those different measures along the face mask wearing, absolutely that, you know, when you add those measures in and you bring vitamin D into that approach, right? And you're bringing vitamin D in, and if you're even pre-infection, so if everyone is taking 5 to 10,000 IUs of vitamin D3 a day, based on again working with your physicians, if you're doing that a day from now, because the winter is going to be rough, the winter is going to be really rough. They're speculating another couple 100,000 people that could potentially die from this virus by the end of January, and their numbers have been wrong every time they've made a prediction about the number of the caseload or deaths. It's been wrong. It's almost doubled, right? So they're not being completely honest with us about what's getting ready to happen during the winter. So we're going to have to come together as communities and community leaders and make up in our minds that we're going to do something on the localized level to make sure that we're working together to suppress COVID-19. So again, when you couple vitamin D3 along with the other practices that have been laid out from by the CDC, you know, we have an opportunity to literally suppress COVID-19 in a very, what we want to do is we want to suppress it at a higher rate of change, right? We want to suppress it at a higher rate of change. Why? Because you have individuals that are out there that are, you know, and not that I'm dogging anyone out, but you have epidemiologists and you have people that are in the science, the medical science industries that are moving toward certain declarations that will say, let herd immunity occur within our communities, right? We can't afford to let herd immunity occur within our communities, especially as Black and brown people, because we're dying at 83% higher death rates in certain states than our white brothers and sisters, right? So we can't afford. We're not being addressed at the risk factors that we're encountering as people of color, right? And because we're not being addressed in media or anywhere else, that means that we're going to have to take the responsibility for ourselves, like the young people in Nigeria. But when you're taking the approach, it has to be a communal approach. You cannot do it successfully without having a communal approach. You know? So that's what we're pushing as well.
No, I wanted to interject quickly because of time. Now, if hopefully I did not miscommunicate on the issue with Nigeria. The issue that's going on in Nigeria, of course, COVID-19 is all over, is global, but Nigerians are, the youth of Nigerians are not necessarily uprising against COVID-19. It's against the brutality of the police in that country. All right. And so I just want to make sure that I'm communicating clearly on this. But of course, your advice on the communal approach to combating COVID-19 is right on point. You know, it's right on point. So thanks for expressing that. Let's take a few questions because of time. So if we can wrap up. Are there any, this is from Beatrice Kamal. Thank you for chiming in, Beatrice. She says, are there any herbal plants, supplements you can recommend to grow that boost vitamin D? Quickly, so we can go to the next question. Dr. Kim, Dr. Kim Wagadi, any of you can respond to this. are there any herbal plant supplements you can recommend to grow that boost vitamin D? Basically, what are some of the plants that we can get vitamin D from?
One is mushroom, but like Dr. Gaddy said, many other colorful plants and fruits, both plants and fruit, can boost your immune system. So any of those. I would say what I recommend to those who are doing supplements and like to boost their immune system naturally, I usually will say vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc at a base. Vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc at a base. And then after that, a healthy diet. If you can, fruits and vegetables, as much fruits and vegetables, eggs, fortified cereals that are fortified with vitamin D, cereal, milk, soy milk, all of those are also good. Cheese, fatty fish, and some people eat beef liver, but only in moderation.
Fatty fish.
And don't forget hand washing, social distancing, and wear your mask.
Okay. Dr. Kim, you said at the base, vitamin D, zinc, and vitamin C at the base. If you say at the base, again, I want us to break it down to the layman's understanding. If somebody walks into Walgreens or CVS and want to pick up this three, what should they look out for in terms of milligram? We have 500, 600, 1,000, 100. What should they, based off your recommendation, what should they be looking out for? Or what should they go pick if they want to get this three combination?
I would say for vitamin D, minimum, I say 4,000 to 5,000 international units minimum. So it comes in a 5,000 milligram, 5,000 international units, one daily minimum. Vitamin C, 1,000 milligrams when you're fighting infection. And then vitamin C, zinc, it will depend on the supplement. What I take is I take a supplement, and I hate to give a brand name, but it's the easiest way for me to put it together. It's Airborne.
Okay.
And that's just a product that contains the vitamin C, the vitamin C, the zinc, and echinacea all combined together. So I take Airborne and vitamin D every day, and a multivitamin.
Great. Airborne and vitamin D every day. And you said vitamin D, 5,000 milligram, right?
Yes, that's minimum.
Minimum. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for helping me with that, because I really wanted to get that out. Next question. So if I have vitamin C, 1,000 milligram, is it not safe to take daily? Also, if I'm taking both vitamins, what will be the proper dosage each pill daily or weekly? And I think maybe you already responded to this, but go ahead if you want to touch on this, Dr. Gaddy or Dr. Kim.
Dr. Kim.
Yes, Dr. Kim. I think it was.
I would say that was the question that was just answered. So you can do 1,000 milligrams, 500 to 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C with your vitamin D, 4,000 to 5,000 international units.
Okay. Thank you so much again for responding to that. And Jackie Monet, thank you, Jackie Monet, for joining the feed. We miss you. We haven't seen you in a long while. So thank you so much for coming back. Please share the feed whilst you're watching. Great information here. It's almost 8 p.m., but information is good. So we're going to go a little bit above time today. She says, first finding out about COVID, I purchased elderberry and vitamin C, thinking that would help, but I'm aware vitamin D is important after this show. Will she be correct to say that?
No, elderberry is very good. Elderberry is excellent in immune modulation as well. But vitamin D carries the biggest load with respect to immune modulation. Yes, elderberry can help. Vitamin C can help. But vitamin D is the emphasis. So that is the reason why we are concentrating on vitamin D.
Vitamin D is the emphasis. Thank you so much. Tommy Ademikon says, yes, so we need to take responsibility like the youths of Nigeria. Okay, she was just, thank you so much, Tommy, for joining and sharing your comment. Pastor Ate says, thank you very much for this show. It was an eye-opener. Thank you so much, Pastor Ate, for your contribution. You make this show a more eye-opener one for everybody. Maggie Lubia says, thank you for this information. Thank you so much for joining us, Maggie. and for passing your comment. She says, how many times a day the vitamin D? I guess she's trying to say how many times should you take vitamin D a day?
Once or twice a day is okay. If you're taking 10,000 or 20,000, 10,000 in the morning, 10,000 at night, or 5,000 in the morning and 5,000 at night. And also, just now, Reverend Vines reminded me, and in the I think we forgot to mention vitamin K2. If you're supplementing vitamin D over a long term, vitamin D3 and vitamin K2, they work in conjunction, so they both work synergistically. So vitamin K2 is also important.
Okay, vitamin K. All right. And then Pearl says, great show. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pearl, for chiming in. She says, this was a great show. Much clarity given to me. Thank you so much, Jackie. You make this show a great one. And to all our contributors and caller who have aided in a great conversation. It's a minute past 8 p.m. Central. We are still on the Progressive Mind Show. We're here in Chicago, and you've been watching us on Facebook, the Progressive Minds feed on Facebook. YouTube as well is going on currently. We are live on YouTube. It is the Progressive Mind Show. If you missed it, you can always go back to the Facebook page or the YouTube page and rewatch it. Now, as you're watching it, make sure you share it so that all of us and more, all of us can benefit off of the discussions we've had so far. Reverend Vines, Reverend Sellers Vines, Dr. Banu Gadi, Dr. Kimberly Battle Miller, you have been a blessing to our community and the entire world this evening. We know that this will not be the first and the last. This discussion has to go on. We have to keep educating our community, and we have to keep strengthening ourselves and make sure that we are strong for the unknown, because as you said, they said winter is coming and it's going to be, cases are going to go up. We don't know. But what we are confident of is that if we fortify ourselves, if we fortify our immune system, well, whatever the situation is out there, with God, we will be able to brace it. All right. So let's take this information very, very, very seriously. Now, I know we're past time, but because this is super, super important, just like any other show, Reverend Vines, you mentioned something about, you and I talked about some article that Dr. Fauci put out there, right? And since a lot of people listen to Dr. Fauci, maybe between the three of you, can you help elaborate because of time? Maybe let's take 2 minutes to go over that article, the importance of it, and how that article ties into the information that you are disseminating this evening. Who would like to take it on? Would it be Reverend Vines, or Dr. Kim, or Dr. Banu?
Reverend Vines, would you like to start on which article you sent
very,
for us?
Okay, can you do that briefly?
Yeah, I can't. I hate that I don't have the reference site, but we'll get it to you. And if you would like to post it, definitely you can do that. But Dr. Fauci, in an article, he stated that he is taking 6,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. I wish he would have said that earlier. That would have been, necessary for the public. And I think he has enough community respect, but they would have listened to him early on.
No,
and as you can see, vitamin D was a part of.
It's still important. So go ahead. I just posted it on the feed. I think it says it's www.newsbreakup.com. That's the link, right? That's where the information is. That's where the article is. So go ahead and elaborate. This is super important. So go ahead.
Sure. Again, I wish he would have just mentioned it earlier. I mean, if he was taking it early on, he should have let the community know that vitamin D was definitely a source for dealing in increasing your immune during this time. And as you know, when President Trump when he contracted the virus, vitamin D was part of his protocol and his treatment. So a lot is said about that. So I know for a fact that we're putting the right information out for the safety and the well-being of our global community.
That's powerful. Thank you so much for any Dr. Kim and Banu. Did you want to add your 2 cents to what he said, or that's good enough?
I would say Reverend Vines covered that very clearly. Two top officials that we hear the most about regarding COVID. Dr. Fauci takes it daily. And one of the first things they mentioned when they were treating your president when he had COVID infection was that he was on vitamin D.
Okay.
That was one of the top three things they mentioned as his first level of care.
Mm. And I think I can, looking at the article, if I'm getting it right, it says the protocol is as follows. If you have COVID-19, based of the article, according to Dr. Fauci, right, it says 50,000 IU of vitamin D3, 4 times daily for 5 days. Make sure it is D3, not the D2 that is available by prescription. Am I allowed to go through this?
That's accurate. Yes.
Okay, do you want me to go through it? Okay. And then it says to prevent dehydration, have him drink 6 ounces of water every 30 minutes during the waking hours till 7 p.m. 2 grams of magnesium in 2 divided doses, 15 to 30 grams of zinc daily, 200 mcg of vitamin K2/MK7 daily prevents any calcification. Add C, potassium, turmeric, and others if you wish. No need to take additional calcium supplements. Take protocol in the morning with food. Please eat well, low carb, high fat, eggs, avocados, butter, etc. He needs a lot of energy to fight this. He says the immediate thing to do, have his vitamin D level checked, find out what his ng/ml. Okay, so I think this was an advice from him to the president. Is that what it is?
No, there was one of Dr. Gaddy's recommendation in the protocol that he had utilized.
Okay, all right. Okay, so my apologies for mixing that up. So because it was, I got that information in addition to the link. So I thought I was reading. Okay, I thought that was Fauci's protocol, but that is Dr. Gaddy's protocol, right? That is Dr. Gaddy. Okay. Sorry.
One could only wish that Dr. Fauci recommended those doses.
well, who knows? Maybe he might do so sometime in the future. But we are glad that you guys have taken it upon yourself to educate the community and the society at large about the importance of vitamin D and how we can stay safe in this season and in this era. We know that it shall be over soon.